So, because there's some really beautiful sharings today. So continue to put into the chat box your spiritual teachers, your influences, and what the song is that came up for you when Shekinah Ma made that suggestion. I'm going to read some of those tonight. But we're going to start by taking a look at a video from an interview that I did with Reverend Matthew Fox. And I'm going to comment a little bit on it afterwards. But for those of you who don't know Matthew Fox, he is a beloved teacher. He's written dozens of books. He put on the Cosmic Mass, which was an incredible event that took place throughout the many, many years in San Francisco Bay Area. And so with no further ado, let's hear a little bit from Matthew Fox about who he was influenced by. And it's an especially interesting story. I would love to ask you two more questions, if I may. Who have been some of your inspirations as you were growing up or as you were evolving? And how do you apply any of those inspirational people, whether they were living human beings or archetypal figures? How do you apply those to your work now as a spiritual teacher?
But when I was a boy, I was very, very taken by Abraham Lincoln. I read everything I could. I read Carl Sandburg's work and all these people about Lincoln. And it was my 12th birthday, I think. My mother took me and a friend and my younger brother on a trip to Lincoln country. I lived in Wisconsin, so we went to Springfield, we went to New Salem, and it was just like a miracle for me to see the house where Lincoln lived in and all that. It was the real high point for me. And I was wrestling whether I should try to follow Lincoln and be a lawyer, or whether I was feeling called to try the Dominicans, to be what I became. And I remember this one line in Lincoln that was burned in my soul at a very young age. He said, "Be an honest lawyer. And if you cannot be an honest lawyer, be honest without being a lawyer." And I think that sentence, which stayed for me so long, so affirmed the whole reality of a vocation, of a calling. And I think that it's played out for me. You know, I like that quote from Joe Campbell: "None of us lives the life we had intended." So here I became a Dominican, friar is the official name, not really a monk, but a friar. And I studied hard and I went to Paris to study and all that. But then after a while, with my writing and everything, I ran into some buzzsaws from the Vatican. But I think that invitation to conscience from Lincoln stayed with me very strongly, because that one sentence, I always loved it. If you cannot be an honest lawyer, be honest without being a lawyer. There are more important things than the profession that we join. You're either going to do it well and do it with integrity and conscience, or pay the price. And of course, if you do it with conscience and integrity, you're going to pay a price. That's certainly something I've learned about after I was evicted from the order after 34 years for daring to talk about God as mother and God as child, and working with Native Americans and so forth. The objections the Vatican at that time, not this present version of the Vatican, but before them, were of that ilk. So Lincoln was very important to me. And I got polio when I was 12, and I met this Dominican brother who was not a priest, but a brother, and was very gentle. He would come and visit me regularly in the hospital, because I was in the hospital for months. And my father had been a football coach in Wisconsin. I thought I was going to grow up and be a football star like my older brothers and like he was. But here I lost my legs, and they couldn't tell me if I would get my legs back. So I realized, I got to get a new model for what it means to be a man. And this fellow kind of walked into my life. He was very contemplative. He was so contemplative that after a few years of being a Dominican brother, he left the Dominicans to become a Trappist monk. because Trappist monks are well, like Thomas Merton, they live a very severe contemplative life. And so he had a real subtle effect on me because he was extremely gentle, very different from my father, who was very strong character and into football. And so I realized, oh, there are various ways to be a man in this world. Now, as it turned out, after about a year, I did get my legs back, and I did play football and loved sports, still do love sports. But I learned this lesson. And when I got my legs back, I remember saying to the universe, I'll never take my legs for granted again. So that really, when I look back on it, was a very mystical moment. Not because I often define the mystic as one who doesn't take for granted even a breath. Each breath we receive is a gift. And that's what meditation is recognizing, paying attention to these gifts that come so regularly to us, but we can often take for granted. So life itself, light itself, as we've been talking about, is not something to take for granted. So those are two people, that lay brother and Abraham Lincoln, who influenced me when I was a boy. And I think and then I've had so many wonderful teachers and so many other mystics that I've encountered and written about that have really, what can I say, blown my soul wide open over the years, and especially Meister Eckhart and Hildegard of Bingen, whose painting is behind me. These great mystics, it's been such a privilege to be able to explore these great souls and call it work and even make a living doing it. What a gift. Oh, I'm sorry, there's some yard.
Hey, everybody. I don't know why that stopped so suddenly. So I'm a little surprised by that. But what's beautiful about that story, and he alluded to it about getting kicked out by the previous Vatican, is his dedication to honesty. And he got kicked out for doing same-sex marriages. And so that influence of Abraham Lincoln, of always being honest, and 40 years later, after he had that impact, his honesty caused a big one, to be kicked out of his profession by the Vatican. And when that happened, I mean, I was aware of it. Our whole kind of community at the time was aware of it. Reverend Michael Beckwith, when I interviewed Michael last week or a few days ago, I mentioned that story, and he said, oh yeah, when he lost his church, we brought him into Agape. So it's beautiful to see the ways that these different spiritual leaders that we look to now have been influenced, as so beautifully expressed by the Twin Ray today, by Michael Beckwith, and now Matthew Fox. The next person who we're going to take a look at is Thich Nhat Han. And I'm imagining that most of you are probably familiar with him. I hope so. I did a week-long workshop with him in Ojai. It was sponsored by the Ojai Foundation. And this was probably 20 years ago. And as fate would have it, there was a very severe wildfire that took place about halfway through the retreat. And it was very, very intense. And for a couple of days, it was like we were right on the verge of being evacuated because the wildfire was so close. And there's a lot of smoke and a lot of helicopters coming in to drop fire retardant on the fire. Now, for any of you who don't know Thich Nhat Han's story, when he was a boy, he grew up in Vietnam. I'll pull up the picture of him. When he was a boy, he grew up in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And then became a peace activist. So here he is leading this workshop, and there were a couple hundred people there. And what I remember the most was him being honest and saying, I'm really struggling right now to teach this workshop because the helicopters coming in and the smoke and the sound has completely re-stimulated my childhood memories of the Vietnam War. And he was so humble and so honest about his experience. And that's what I think you're going to see in this beautiful man. He brings a humility that's quite precious. So let's hear from Thich Nhat Han.
Nirvana is the cooling down, the peace, the joy. When you have been able to remove your wrong views, when you have been able to extinguish the fire of anger, fear, and so on. And the Buddha also said that Nirvana is available in the here and the now. We do not need to die in order to touch Nirvana. In fact, we need our body, our feelings, our perceptions in order to touch Nirvana. We can very well touch Nirvana with our body. And that can be possible even today. You don't need to practice 5 years or 10 years in order to begin touching Nirvana. So Nirvana is a state of no fever. There's no fever. There's no heat. The heat, the fever, the flames are born from wrong perceptions and from afflictions like fear, anger, and despair. And if we follow the path recommended by the Buddha, we can very well extinguish the fire in our daily life.
Thank you so much. That was Jay and Jan have put together some of the videos that you're seeing tonight. And so thank you, Jay and Jan, for that. The next one is another one from Jay and Jan, and it's the Dalai Lama. I don't think he needs much of an introduction. So here we go. Let's take a look at what the Dalai Lama has to say. And again, a reminder of all these beautiful spiritual teachers that we're so blessed to have.
Very purpose of our life, I usually describe happiness. Reason, the future, even this afternoon, what will happen, do not know. And future, no guarantee, but our life based on hope. Even present some difficulties, still with hope, our life remains. If someone completely lost hope, then that very mental attitude shortens their life. And worst case, even suicide may take place. So therefore, hope means something good. Therefore, a purpose of our life, I usually telling people, happiness is our sort of the real meaning of our life. Now happiness, the materialistic way, happiness only sensorial level. Seeing something nice, hearing some beautiful music, and taste, and smell, and touch, including sex. These are materialistic sort of, or say happiness, materialistic level happiness. These are short, not long-lasting happiness. Long-lasting happiness must develop on mental level. Now in this country, one part of Sangha philosophy and then Jain philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, no creator, rather self-creation. So therefore, the concept of karma also come. Everything depends on your own action. Positive action virtuous action bring good. Harmful, sinful action bring suffering. That depends on motivation. So in this country, over 3,000 years, they already examined the ultimate source of happiness, not external, but here. Not sensorial level, but mental level. So practice of shamatha, practice of vipassana come. So therefore, and you see these things originally come from religious text. Now we should take now these things as an academic subject, not a religious subject.
Some of you have heard me share the story I'm about to share about the Dalai Lama, but it's so important. It's become a big part of my teaching as a relationship coach. The Dalai Lama allowed people to, brain researchers, took up electrodes to his brain and they tracked how his brain functions. And what they discovered that was amazing was that his synapses entirely fired in the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe, not in the reptile brain. Now, the reptile brain is our survival center. When we get triggered, when we perceive the possibility of attack, our reptile brain takes over and we choose fight or flight or freeze or fawn, all of which are defensive mechanisms and none of which create quality connection. But when we are in our frontal lobe, in the temporal lobe, that's where the empathy center of the brain is. It's funny, where I always think empathy is in the heart. Actually, the empathy center is in the brain. And that's where we also have the observer part of the brain, where you can see the big picture, where we can have empathy. So they hook up the brain scanning equipment to the Dalai Lama, and they run these tests. And at the very end, the lead researcher decided to really test him. And so he showed the Dalai Lama photographs of Chinese soldiers burning down a Tibetan temple. And as the Dalai Lama looked at these photographs, he wept. He didn't stuff his emotions, he wept. But his synapses were still firing up here, not back here. So the lead researcher tried one last time to really trigger him. He said, I want to know, how do you really feel? What are you thinking when you know the Chinese soldiers are raping Tibetan women, perhaps even murdering your Tibetan people? What goes on for you? The Dalai Lama got quiet. He wept. The synapses continued to fire here. And finally he spoke and he said, it reminds me that I must pray equally for the Chinese as I do for my Tibetan people. That is our opportunity as human beings. We are going to get triggered. We're going to have hard things coming into our world, into our lives. But if we can learn how to stay in the heart of compassion for ourselves, for each other, we will make it through. We are awakening. This is an awakening world that we're all part of. And as children of the earth, as the earth is awakening to our new level of consciousness, so are we. And so must we. We must wake up. And awakening isn't necessarily always happy, happy. Awakening requires having to look at consequences of choices we've made that haven't been holistic, that haven't been sustainable. We as humanity have to look at the environmental choices we've made that have caused this extreme climate change. We have to look in our relationships at choices we've made where we've been hurtful to our parents or our children or our lovers or our friends. That's part of the awakening process. And that's why the new show and what we're all doing together is awakening, and we're calling it the Awakening World. Now, I promised to read some of what you've all shared, and I want to read some of the beautiful things that have come in, and then we'll hear a couple more videos. Thank you very much, Dorina Joy, for that. I appreciate it. So Deborah Haviland, one of our regulars, talks about the value of permaculture and that she's building permaculture on her land in Costa Rica. Thank you so much. Lynn and Leaf, also two of our regulars, talk about the spiritual song of Imagine by John Lennon as an influence for them. Oh, well, thank you very much. Many of you are talking about the great teacher of nature. Nature is a great teacher. And I know that Katura next week, my co-host, is going to be talking about that because she's a great lover of nature. And so more people talking about permaculture and really appreciating all the appreciations. Thank you, Michael, Nancy, Dia, so many of our regulars that are here that I'm seeing. And yes, we are going to continue to keep the good vibes going. Appreciations for our angelic loved ones. Parjana writes, love of my son, of Jesus, of Jesus. Let me start again. Love of my son, of Jesus, the Buddha, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Matt Kahn. Matt's going to be on the show again on January 8th. Shekinah Ma and Sanandaji, the Beatles, my guides, the universe, pure source, and so many more. Well, you covered the bases quite well. So that's a good start. I will read more of the sharings before the end of the show. Dr. Wayne Dyer, here I am in Maui, where he lived in the final years of his life. I met him a couple times here. And let's hear what wonderful Wayne Dyer, and I'm sure many of you read his books or watched his videos. Here he is on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and let's hear what he had to say.
Mastering the art of manifestation.
Right.
How is that different from the law of attraction?
It's very, very different.
Tell me.
Yeah, the law of attraction, and I'm not here to put down the law of attraction. I think
I think the law of attraction and The Secret opened people up to a
Right.
new way of thinking.
Absolutely.
It had its flaws because
Right.
it allowed some people to think that all you had to do was think about a bicycle and there it would show
Right.
up.
Yeah.
And the key word that you use in here over and over and over again in every chapter is that in order to attract or manifest anything, you have to be in alignment
With your source.
with your source.
With God.
With
you have
God.
to be.
Yeah, it's about
You have to stay
alignment.
connected to the ocean.
That's right.
You have to stay
Because you
connected.
can't just
Yeah.
sit around and wishing
Yeah.
for stuff. Or
So the basic thing that Neville taught me, and a lot of this is from the teachings of Neville, Neville Goddard, who died in the 1970s. He basically said that all of us have within us this amazing capacity to manifest and attract anything that we want into our life. So how we call it, what words that we use, we have to be able to say, in The Secret they say you get what you want, and what is missing. And what Neville said and what has come to me and what I got from the I Am discourses and what I get from the New Testament, which I read before I did this, is that you say, I will attract into my life what I am, not what I want. And I am capable of attracting all things that the source is capable of attracting. So that's the difference. It's like you get what you are rather than what you want. So you want to become. You can't go around and ask these divine beings, angels, whatever you want to call them,
who are right here all the time.
Always. You
Right
can't.
here,
You
right
can't
here,
ask
right
them to help me out. You have to become like they are. That when you become angelic, when you become a divine being yourself, when you are giving, when you are serving, when you are in that place, they will come to you. That's what happened to you in India. You then begin to see yourself in everything. It's like,
because it is our goal to reflect the character
Right.
of God. That's what
Right,
we're here to do, is
exactly.
to emulate that.
and that's what the Tao Te Ching teaches as well. They
Yes.
call it your original nature. Your original nature is reverence for all of life, gentleness, kindness, and service towards others. That's Lao Tzu, 500 years before the birth of Christ, saying that's our original nature.
Yes.
Reverence for all of life, gentleness, kindness, service towards others, giving, offering, serving. And when you get to that place where you no longer have any judgment within you towards any of God's children, that means no condemnation, no criticism, no judgment towards anyone, even the Osama bin Laden.
But how can we be that since we're here,
But
we're
what-
living, we're on earth, we got problems.
Yeah,
we
but-
got our issues. We have
and-
stuff going on.
And if enough of us get this message, Oprah,
Yes.
if enough of us get it, and that's just what my mission is just to teach people that you are love. You are divine. Put that into your imagination. I am well. I am happy. I am content. I am fulfilled. Even if your senses tell you that you're depressed. One of your people that called me when we did a pre-interview on here said, well, if I'm feeling depressed, I'm supposed to fool myself and say I am feeling well, even
You
if I'm
can
depressed.
choose another thought. That's
Yeah,
what I've learned.
absolutely. And it's like you don't say I am depressed, because if you say I am depressed, you connect with depression, and the universal source, God, whatever you want to call it, will align in such a way to offer you whatever it is.
More
that you
depression.
yeah, here's some more depression. I am unhappy. I am depressed. So by placing into your imagination what you want and assuming the feeling of that wish as already fulfilled, you go through your life feeling that. When enough of us do that, we will transform this planet. I'm telling you, it can be done.
We're doing it right now.
Absolutely. Us sitting here, right here together. It's all part of this perfection.
Well, that was lovely, wasn't it? Turn off the I'm sure that was shot right here in Maui, by the way, because Oprah Winfrey lives in Maui, and so did Wayne Dyer, and you could kind of tell by the background. I want to read a few more of what you shared. Margie writes, honoring Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, yes, in the role he played in bringing our world's phase transition through huge groups of people practicing together transcendental meditation. Thank you. And Nancy just wrote, I believe these videos are on YouTube. And yeah, you can find, by the way, all of the shows that we've done. Please start using our Global Peace Tribe YouTube channel. I've put a lot of energy into building that channel. And you'll find all the complete Saturday Night Live shows, all the complete Straight Talk shows, all the complete Sacred Sunday shows. But I've also created playlists of Scott's favorite interviews, Scott's favorite shows, and even dynamic segments. So you'll see several of tonight's dynamic segments in there. So you can go through, and if you really just want to see the Twin Ray, go in and you'll be able to find some Twin Ray segments or some Michael Beckwith segments. So just go to YouTube and put in Global Peace Tribe and save our channel and start visiting our channel. Bring your friends to our channel. So of course, I love having all of you on live with us, but we live forever in YouTube. A few other things to mention. By the way, thanks again, Jay and Jan, for finding these great videos. That Wayne Dyer one was beautiful, wasn't it? What he said about our true nature, and it is true, that is our true nature. My good friend Gutierrez is here, and I'm thinking also about Osho. Nobody has mentioned Osho yet tonight. And my wife, who passed away, loved Osho. She would work very hard and then fly to India to spend 3 to 4 months with Osho. And then she'd come back to San Francisco and work very hard. She did that for many, many years. One of her proud achievements was that she frequently danced with Osho. He liked tall, blonde women, which she was. But I want to acknowledge Osho as a very significant teacher for so many of us. So thank you.
A few people in the chat box did mention him. Yes,
Good.
Osho. Yeah.
Debbie, since you've been covering the chat box, who are some of the other teachers that you've noticed that people have mentioned? And you're muted. You need to unmute.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. A lot of the ones that we saw all night, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Eckhart Tolle, a lot Landmark Education and Werner Erhard, Greg Braden. There have just been so many. Those are just a few of the ones I just read recently, but yeah, so many people shared so wonderfully, and everyone, as I think they know that you save the chat box, we read it. It's just great to see everyone's comments, and everyone's been sharing so much. Everyone is so moved by the show tonight, as I am. It's just so powerful that we're so blessed right now to have these wonderful teachers. So it's quite an amazing show. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Debbie, for all that you do behind the scenes to support. And I'm really excited about collaborating with you into the new year. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yep. Thanks.
Let's go to my good friend, Andrew Harvey. This is an interview I did with Andrew last week. I love this man. He has written 40 books. He has collaborated with so many people, everybody from the Dalai Lama to Carolyn Meese, and he loves Kabir, and that's his newest book. So let's hear from dear beloved Andrew Harvey. I am so grateful to be with you, Andrew, and to hear about this extraordinary new book that you've written. And just please tell us how Kabir has influenced and impacted you and your life.
What a huge and fabulous question. First of all, thank you for inviting me on to this delicious celebration, and thank you for your wonderful service to us all. I have just produced something that fills me with joy. It's a book called Engoldenment, 366 Timeless Poems. It's a yearbook in which you can take Kabir as your friend through your year. And the reason why I feel so passionate about this book is because Kabir has truly changed my life. Let me tell you a little bit about Kabir, and then I'll tell you why I think he is so important for us now. Kabir lived between about 1440 and 1518. He was born into a poor weaver's family, a Muslim family, in the holiest and wildest Hindu city, Benares. And he woke up completely, probably in his late 20s and 30s, and he became, simply put, humanity's greatest revolutionary mystical poet, with Rumi. There are two great universal prophet poets. One is Rumi. I've spent 40 years on Rumi, and I've spent the last 10 years on Kabir, because when I had a very difficult period in my life and a fit of periodic bankruptcy, I lived in a hut in Arkansas, and I decided to begin to translate Kabir as an offering. And that changed my life in ways that I'll describe. Kabir basically stood up in the middle of his world and said, you Hindus are crazy and you Muslims are crazy. There is a direct connection with the one beyond religion, which is accessible to everyone and which everyone needs to claim right now, because we're in this crazy Kali Yuga. He knew Kali Yuga was beginning. And if you claim this direct connection, something quite extraordinary will happen to you, just as it's happened to me. You won't just be enlightened, and that's good enough. You won't just wake up to your divine identity with the one. What will happen to you is what I've called engoldenment, and he calls turning to gold. What will happen to you if you risk this wild and holy adventure is that your mind will be transformed to divine gold, your heart will be transformed to divine gold, and the cells of your body will be kissed awake by the light, and you will grow a divine body. And you'll become unified, heart, mind, soul, and body, turned to gold in engoldenment with the glory of the One. They tried to kill Kabir, I think, 25 times because he was such a radical, and he was speaking not in Sanskrit, but in the Hindi of the time, in street Hindi, so he could reach everybody.
Wow.
But they couldn't manage it because he was protected by the king, who thought, well, he may seem crazy, but I know him to be the most authentic person around. The reason why I feel that Kabir is so important for all seekers now, which is why I labored 4 months last year as COVID erupted to get this book out, is for 4 reasons, really. The first is that Kali Yuga is now raging and erupting everywhere in what is clearly, and I know all of you know, a potentially apocalyptic crisis. Kabir woke up to that crisis in the 15th century in Benares. He saw the corruption, the madness, the dissociation, the desolation, the addiction, and he called it. So he called the very situation that we are now facing with unprecedented passion, ferocity, tenderness, and clarity. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that Kabir understood at the most visceral level the nature of the global dark night that we are now plunged into as humanity. It's a global eruption. And he knew that the real path entails a death of the false self into life. And again, he called it. He just said it, and said it with such clarity and such purity of heart that he was able to help many people in his time really take the real path into dying into life so that they could become instruments of life's creative, co-creative, wild and holy regeneration. That couldn't be more important for seekers now. The third thing, and this is why I love him so especially, is that Kabir was a Grand Slam sacred activist. He didn't simply sit in his little hut and sing his songs and collect his disciples. He really said again and again and again and again, your enlightenment and your engoldenment are not for you alone, because you will cease to exist as you think you are if you go through the real process. Your enlightenment and your engoldenment are to give you strength and passion and compassion and power and stamina to stand up for the truth, just as I am doing, to really help the transformation of the real world. And most especially, and this is the reason why I love him so, so much, he was the most passionate advocate for animal rights that any mystic has ever been, including St. Francis.
Wow.
Kabir just said, look, if you go on treating animals as you are treating animals, oh human race, you're going to have a tsunami of black karma coming your way. Wake up, see that everything is holy. You're not holier than your cat or your dog or the flea dancing on the stone in front of you. Everything is equal in the one, and your job as a human being is to honor that equality, protect that equality, and stand up for the sanctity of life and for the creation. Nobody has ever said it so beautifully and simply and nakedly. And the fourth reason, my friends, and this I think is really crucial for everyone at this moment. The fourth reason is that Kabir knew from his inmost experience that the whole point of Kali Yuga wasn't just destruction of the old, it was birth of the new. He was living that birth in his transfiguration from a human being into a divine human being. And as many of you know, I've been saying again and again, and whenever I'm allowed to, that the real meaning of our global dark night is not the destruction of the human race. That could happen if we don't align with its laws, but the birth of a new embodied divine human race. And it was Kabir who taught me this. It was Kabir who initiated me into this. And it was Kabir's direct, naked, glorious poems that made me aware that we are in now, through this global dark night, also a global engoldening process that could, if we accept the terms of this massive transformation, give us the guts and the chutzpah and the creativity to be born as divine human beings together and to co-create together, you and I, a wholly new way of living and doing everything. And I'm going to just give you one of Kabir's poems.
Oh,
Which is
fantastic.
the complete poem of the engoldened divine human. There are 366 more of them in this book. So please, for the price of a decent breakfast or half decent breakfast, bring Kabir into your life and let him rock your world and transform you as he has rocked my world and transformed me. Not enough, obviously, but continues to do so every single day. I love him more than anything I can describe.
Wow.
And I'm so honored to have been able to bring him to you. Please, 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 I beg you, welcome him into the depths of your life. You'll have the best friend you'll ever need. Not a flatterer, but a lover of your essential being who will encourage the heaven out of you to do whatever you can to be the very best you can be.
Before you start the poem, everybody, just want to tune you in. Go to Amazon. It's really easy. And it's Engoldenment. And you just put in Engoldenment, Andrew Harvey, it comes right up. I found it immediately. I'm going to get, right away, I'm going to get both the Kindle edition, and I'm going to get it myself. So here we go. I'm proceeding to check out. That's how easy it is to buy on Amazon and get lots and lots of copies, okay?
Thank you, my darling.
Absolutely.
I published it myself because I didn't want anybody else to get their sticky fingers on it. I wanted it to be the determined and definitive statement as far as I could do it for you, because I know how much I need him and I know how much he can give you. So here is the divine human speaking, your divine human speaking to you. I've been a yogi for longer than anyone could begin to remember. I don't come or go. I don't vanish. I enjoy the endless divine sound. I see my family all around me, and every place I go is a party. I'm in all. All are in me. In the many, I'm alone. Focused power, profound meditation, silent I speak, out of form, inner form, no form, I play and dance within myself. Listen, friend, I have no agenda. In my heart, I sway to and fro in the self, and I play simply to please myself. That freedom, that spaciousness, that peace, that passion, that compassion, they are all available to us now in our extremity. And the one who can guide us most cleanly and clearly of all the great mystics of humanity is Kabir.
Andrew, your passion is so beautiful, so incredibly beautiful, my God. And in your experience, just talking about, like, to wrap this up for now, because we have all these wonderful
Oh God, you've got such a gorgeous group, Matt and Lynn, and oh my heavens, how
all your friends,
all my buddies, yeah.
How, in a practical way, when you're doing the dishes, when you're doing
Oh yes.
does Kabir come into your reality?
Look, Kabir he was a weaver all his life. He never had cash. He didn't want cash. He didn't want to be a guru. He was an ordinary person living an extraordinary, ordinary life. So that's one thing. Kabir is always talking about how there is a way that you can do everything with deep devotion, adoration, presence. So you can wash the dishes, and when you wash the dishes, you can be washing away symbolically all your own horseshit. Mm-hmm. So a clean dish represents to you your clean heart. There is a way to do that. When you are in your ordinary life, just practice seeing everyone that you are with as aspects of your own divine self and treat them with courtesy and respect and recognition. The person at Safeway, you're the waiter, the difficult uncle at the table at Christmas. The other great technique, and this is really key to the transformation for all of us, I think, Jesus gave us one prayer to work with, and the great masters usually just give one technique. Kabir gives us the name of God. And I have practiced myself saying the name of the divine that I love. I used the great mantra from Islam, La ilaha illallah, but use whatever name makes the most heart sense to you. You'll discover that if you just do the simple practice of returning in remembrance to the name and saying the name in the heart, you'll be given peace, strength, and the mystery will teach you directly. Don't believe me, I might be on crack. Kabir might be on crack. Try it. You'll find out that if you do that very simple practice, all you need is that very simple practice, you'll find a way to live your ordinary life as the feast of divine revelation and presence it actually is. Because there's only one being here. And in the depths of your ordinary life, all the greatest secrets are already radiating. The name will help you see that and give you the joy and strength and chutzpah and courage and peace of mind to go on going on with joy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I'm looking forward to you and I are going to do a show together in the new year on sacred inspirations.
Oh, yes.
Awakening world.
This is the time where we all need intravenous inspiration daily, of course, but it's available. That's the great good news, my friends. Mm-hmm. Kabir's here, they're all here, and they're all ready to help us.
Again, it's Engoldenment, A Year with Kabir, translated by, I'm so proud to be able to say my friend, Andrew Harvey, with his incredible, beautiful voice, his incredible, just so beautiful. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I'm looking forward to being with you again in the new year.
Hooray. Bless you. Look after your beautiful self.
Oh, thank you. I'm here with my friend Kutira, and she and her husband Raphael are going to be doing amazing things next week on Christmas. She's awesome, and her husband Raphael is world famous musician, so it's going to be really a wonderful show. You know, I want to acknowledge Mark Denisovsky. He's one of our regulars, and Mark just said something really beautiful. He talked about when he used to paint apartments, he would say a prayer for the next inhabitants. And, you know, when I asked Andrew the question about washing the dishes, it's like, that's the thing. How can we bring this consciousness into everything we do? And how we talk to each other, and how we do the dishes, and how we paint the houses? If we can really do that from everybody, in all of our ways, is really, really showing up. While we are in Andrew Harvey appreciation, I do want to play one more time a video. I did play it for our early show, but I want to play it again. It's very short. And it's Andrew talking about the new show that I'm going to be doing, The Awakening World, which I'm very, very excited about. So here's what Andrew has to say about the show that Debbie Johnson and I are going to be doing with several other wonderful people and all of you. There we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to celebrate The Awakening World and Scott Catamas's new formulation of his wild and holy adventure beginning next year. What more wonderful title could we have for that adventure than The Awakening World? And aren't we all going to need to be constantly reminded that there is a world awakening and being born in the middle of all of this massive apocalyptic destruction? We're going to need it like oxygen, and I cannot think of a more honorable and decent person to help us awaken to that awakening world than my old buddy and co-conspirator, Scott Catamas. And in the new year, Scott and I are going to do a whole program for you, a whole transmission for you on sacred inspiration, because it's my experience, and I know it's Scott's too, that in a dark time, what we all need more than oxygen is sacred inspiration to keep us alive to our true selves and energized by divine love and given the courage to put love into action to become midwives of this awakening world.
I've got on camera our wonderful mystic Abbot Jerry. He's a big part of our team. And of course, Debbie Johnston and all of you. We're all going to be creating the awakening world together. So again, a reminder, please, I'll put back into the chat box the registration link. And maybe while you're watching this next segment, if you haven't already registered, please do register. And anybody who registers at $75, that's for 3 months, 3 shows every weekend for 3 months. For $75, and you'll come into our supporters party and our meetings where we are discussing what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be co-creating. So I'll pop that into the chat box in a moment. All right, our last video from Jay and Jan is Joel Osteen. And I'll tell you a little bit about Joel. Jan and Jay sent me a little bit about him. He was the head of the biggest church in the country, a pastor, televangelist, author based in Houston, Texas. And as of 2018, his televised sermons have been seen by 10 million people, several million more in over 100 countries. He's written several best-selling books. So for those of you who don't know Joel Osteen, we're about to be introduced to him. Let's take a look.
If you're going to fulfill your destiny, you have to get good at letting things go. Jesus said, offenses will come. He didn't say they might come. If you're a good person, if you're nice, nobody will do you wrong. He said, disappointments will come. Betrayals, things that are not fair will come. How you deal with these offenses, how you handle the hurts will determine whether you move forward and see the new things God has in store, or whether you get stuck, bitter over what didn't work out. I've heard it said, if you don't heal from emotional wounds, you will bleed on people that had nothing to do with it. How many people are living wounded over how they were raised, a friend that walked away, business partner that cheated them? Instead of letting it go, they replay it in their mind, relive all the hurt. They wonder why they don't have good relationships. It's because they haven't healed. They're living out of a wounded place. God brings a new person, somebody great, but they're so insecure. They don't feel valuable, attractive. This new person has to keep them fixed, go overboard to make sure they know how great they are. The problem is that's not sustainable until you get well, until you let go of what didn't work out, not carry the hurt. That wound is going to hinder you wherever you go. If you're still wounded over a position you lost, you'll go to that new company defensive, on edge, not friendly. You're treating them based on what you've been through, but they had nothing to do with it. It's much more freeing when you learn to let things go. Wasn't fair? That's okay. God will be your vindicator. He'll take care of who did you wrong. It's not your job to pay people back. They hurt you once. Don't let them continue to hurt you by holding on to it. You lost a loved one. I know that's painful. It's okay to go through a season of mourning, but you can't hold on to the hurt. Living in mourning is going to keep the new doors from opening. You have to heal so you can see the new relationships, the new opportunities. In the scripture, Peter asked Jesus how often he should forgive someone that did him wrong. It's funny because Peter was known to be offensive. He's the one that cursed out the young lady when Jesus was arrested. He cut off a soldier's ear defending Jesus. He said, Jesus, should I forgive them 7 times? The Jewish law said 3 times. He more than doubled it. He thought, Jesus, I'm growing. I'm come a long way. Jesus said, Peter, 7 is good, but I want you to forgive them 70 times 7. It wasn't really about the number. Jesus was showing us a principle. He was saying, I want you to live in a continual process of forgiveness. Not something you do every once in a while, but on a daily basis, forgiveness should be a part of our life. He was setting a system in place so we wouldn't hold on to the hurts, offenses, disappointments. He knew that practically every day we would have these opportunities. And the quicker you let things go, the easier it is. In the Lord's Prayer, Jesus told us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others." He was saying every day we should be ready to forgive. Doesn't have to be big things. That man that cut you off in traffic, let it go. Don't let that sour your day. Your time is valuable. That's a distraction trying to get you off course, offended over something that doesn't matter. That clerk that's rude to you at the grocery store, just smile and move on. I've learned life is full of wounded people, people that haven't dealt with the negative things in their past. At times they'll be disrespectful. They'll say things they shouldn't, do things that are hurtful. You can't stop the offense from coming, but you can keep it from getting down in you. How much time are you spending offended, bitter, holding a grudge? How much more could you accomplish if you would start letting things go? How much better relationships would you have if you would get emotionally healthy? If you would let go of what people said, forgive the person that did you wrong, quit reliving the hurt?
There you go. Absolutely. And hey, Debbie and Mystic Abbott are still on the camera with us. Love you guys both so much. Thank you so much and thank you everybody. I love it. We still have 115 people in the Zoom room and probably 1,000 watching on Facebook. And I want to also acknowledge anybody watching our replays. Our statistics show us that about 35% of the people who view the shows are watching the replays now, and that number is growing and growing. So we're wrapping up here. I want to thank everybody for watching. And again, a reminder one more time, please join me tomorrow morning and for my Sacred Sunday show. And I love the Sacred Sunday show because it's where we get to go really deep with one or two fascinating guests. And tomorrow we're going to see Astarius, who you met tonight, Dr. Brenda Wade, who's been on the show a few times. She's going to be one of my ongoing co-hosts. And so join us tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock Pacific time. That's 8 o'clock for me here in Maui. And of course, 1 o'clock in the afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. And I see that Jay and Jan are with us. So I'm going to put the spotlight on Jay and Jan for a minute, who did a lot as always. And they're going to be doing the after show for next week. And they always put together fun stuff. So definitely thank you, Jay and Jan, for the videos and what we just watched. Joel Osteen, gonna enjoy having you next week. So thank you so much. All right, everybody. Again, if you haven't already registered, please do register. That means a lot. And be generous as you register. That really helps us to, because I am going to be paying my staff. I'm going to be paying my team as we always have. And so we need your support to continue to do this. And thank you for the birthday wish. And I look forward to sharing my birthday next week with all of you. So I'll see you tomorrow morning for the Sacred Sunday show. And I'll see you next Saturday night for our last Saturday Night Alive of 2021. Take care, everybody, and happy holidays. Good night.